Welcome to the Daily History Chronicle. Each day, we travel back to discover a pivotal moment that changed the world. These aren't just dates and facts. They're stories of courage, conflict, innovation, and consequence that still echo through our lives today. Are you ready to explore? Let's see what happened on this day in history.
This is the Daily History Chronicle, where we explore the moments that shaped our world and discover why they still matter today. I'm Richard Backus, publisher of University Teaching Edition, and every day I get to share a piece of history that I think you'll find as fascinating as I do. On December 26, 2004, a 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck beneath the Indian Ocean, triggering tsunamis that killed more than 230,000 people in 14 countries. It was one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. And here's what fascinates me about this moment. There were no villains, no malicious actors, no calculated cruelty. And yet the catastrophe revealed profound failures in how we protect the most vulnerable among us. Understanding what happened requires holding multiple truths simultaneously. The earthquake was a natural event, tectonic plates shifting as they have for millions of years. But the death toll was amplified by human decisions, where we build, who we warn, and which lives we deem worth protecting. Nature provided the force. Our choices determined who lived and who died. Both things are true. Both things matter. Picture this. It's 7:58 a.m. local time on December 26, 2004. Off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, the seafloor ruptures along a 900-mile fault line. The India Plate lurches beneath the Burma Plate, moving up to 50 feet in a matter of seconds. The sudden vertical displacement pushes an enormous column of water toward the surface. Within minutes, waves racing at 500 miles per hour, jet aircraft speed, begin spreading across the Indian Ocean in every direction. In Banda Aceh, Indonesia, the waves arrive within 15 minutes. Some reach heights of 100 feet. The city, home to 320,000 people, is closest to the epicenter. There is no warning. People wake to their final morning. 2 hours later, the waves reach Thailand's resort beaches, where tourists celebrate the day after Christmas. Security cameras capture the moment. Water receding from beaches, exposing the ocean floor, drawing curious onlookers forward to investigate. Then the wall of water appears on the horizon. In Sri Lanka, the waves strike the Queen of the Sea passenger train, killing more than 1,700 people, the deadliest rail disaster in history. In Somalia, 4,000 miles from the epicenter, the waves still carry enough force to kill hundreds along the coast. By day's end, 230,000 people are dead. Millions more are displaced. Entire communities cease to exist. Let me build the context for understanding how this happened and why the death toll was so catastrophic. Tsunamis are not rare events. Japan experiences them regularly. The word tsunami comes from Japanese, meaning harbor wave. The Pacific Ocean has had a comprehensive warning system since 1949, established after tsunamis killed hundreds in Hawaii and Alaska. The system uses seismometers to detect earthquakes and tide gauges to measure ocean disturbances. When dangerous waves are detected, warnings are issued within minutes, giving coastal communities time to evacuate. The Indian Ocean lacked such a system in 2004. Here's what the evidence tells us. Scientists at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center in Hawaii detected the earthquake within minutes. They knew its magnitude was 9.1, the third largest ever recorded. They understood that an earthquake of this size beneath the ocean would generate tsunamis. But they had no official protocol for warning Indian Ocean countries, no communication network, no designated authorities to contact. The scientists made informal calls to the U.S. State Department and to military contacts. But there was no system to rapidly alert the millions of people in harm's way across 14 countries. Warning systems existed, the technology was proven. But the Indian Ocean, home to some of the world's poorest nations, had been deemed not worth the investment. Think about what that means. In 2004, humanity possessed the technology to detect these waves and save tens of thousands of lives. We chose not to deploy it where it was needed most. My sense is this reveals something uncomfortable about how we calculate risk and allocate protection. The Pacific Rim, wealthy nations like the United States, Japan, and Australia had invested in warning systems after suffering devastating losses. The Indian Ocean Rim, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, Somalia, had not. When the catastrophe struck, the geography of who lived and who died followed the geography of wealth and power. But there's another truth here, and it troubles me. Even with warning systems, saving lives requires more than technology. It requires the ability to act on warnings, to evacuate, to reach higher ground, to have somewhere safe to go. In Banda Aceh, even with 15 minutes notice, where do you run when waves are 100 feet high? In coastal villages built on low-lying land where fishing families have lived for generations, where is the high ground? The international response to the disaster was unprecedented. Within days, governments pledged billions in aid. NGOs mobilized. Individuals around the world donated more than $7 billion, making it one of the most significant humanitarian responses in history. The U.S. military deployed ships and helicopters. Medical teams arrived from dozens of countries. The world watched in real time as the catastrophe unfolded, and for a moment national boundaries seemed less important than human solidarity. And yet the aid response itself revealed uncomfortable truths. Resort areas frequented by Western tourists received help quickly. Remote fishing villages were days or weeks away. Some aid never arrived where it was most needed. Corruption siphoned resources. Promises of reconstruction funding went unfulfilled. Within months, the world's attention moved on, while millions still lived in temporary shelters. We're still living with the consequences of December 26, 2004, in ways most people don't recognize. Within 2 years, the Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System was operational. 27 seismic stations, 101 tide gauges, covering the entire region. The technology we possessed all along was finally deployed. But the question remains, why did it take 230,000 deaths to make this investment worthwhile? Today, tsunami warning systems exist in every Central Ocean basin. But here's what we've learned. Warnings only work if people can act on them. In 2011, despite Japan's sophisticated warning system, more than 18,000 people died when a tsunami struck Fukushima. Why? Because the walls of water exceeded the height of the seawalls. Because evacuation routes were overwhelmed. Because some communities, especially older people, couldn't move quickly enough. Climate change is making the equation more complex. Rising sea levels mean tsunamis reach farther inland. Stronger storms erode natural barriers, such as mangroves and coral reefs, that once dampened wave energy. Coastal populations are growing. Driven by economic pressures, people build closer to danger. The very development that lifts communities out of poverty often increases their vulnerability to natural disasters. The pattern repeats globally. Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans in 2005. not because we lacked the engineering to protect the city, but because we'd underinvested in maintaining levees in poor neighborhoods. Cyclone Nargis killed 140,000 people in Myanmar in 2008, not because the storm was unprecedented, but because the military government refused international aid for days. The 2010 Haiti earthquake killed 200,000, not because the shaking was uniquely powerful, but because poverty meant buildings collapsed while similar earthquakes in wealthy nations caused minimal casualties. What these disasters teach us is that natural hazards become catastrophes when they intersect with human vulnerability. The earthquake beneath the Indian Ocean was inevitable. Tectonic forces care nothing for human life. But the death toll was not unavoidable. It was the result of choices: where to invest in protection, whose lives to prioritize, which communities to warn. I'm drawn to a tension at the heart of this. We have the technology to protect people. Warning systems work, seawalls work, building codes work, evacuation plans work. But implementing these protections requires sustained investment, not just after disasters, but before them. It requires political will. It requires wealthy nations to help poorer ones. It requires treating the lives of fishing families in Indonesia as having equal value to those of tourists on Thai beaches. The 2004 tsunami forced a reckoning. The Indian Ocean now has its warning system. International disaster response has improved. Nations share data more effectively. These are fundamental advances, paid for with 230,000 lives. But I find myself thinking about the communities that are still vulnerable. The coastal villages in Bangladesh, the Philippines, the Pacific Islands. We know the risks. We have the technology. Yet investments lag where poverty is most profound. When the next catastrophe strikes, and it will we again ask why we didn't do more when we had the chance? There's a quote from the disaster risk researcher Ben Wisner that captures this tension. Disasters don't just happen. They are the result of failures of development. What he means is that earthquakes and tsunamis are natural events, but disasters are created by human decisions about land use, building standards, economic inequality, and political priorities. The 2004 tsunami was one of the worst natural disasters in modern history. But calling it a natural disaster obscures the human choices that determined its death toll. Nature provided the earthquake. Humanity decided who would be warned and who would be abandoned. Both things are true. We cannot prevent earthquakes. We can avoid catastrophes. The question is whether we will make that choice before the next wave comes, or wait until after, when counting bodies becomes our only option. I'm Richard Backus, and this is the Daily History Chronicle. Tomorrow, we'll explore another moment that shaped our world. Until then, think about this. What does it say about us that we have the technology to save lives, but deploy it only after catastrophe forces our hand? When we calculate the cost of prevention versus the cost of disaster, whose lives are we factoring into the equation? And in a world where we can predict dangers but struggle to act on that knowledge, what would it take to make protection for the vulnerable as inevitable as the next earthquake? Because that's what the 2004 tsunami teaches us, not just about the power of nature, but about the choices we make when we decide whose lives are worth protecting in advance, and whose we're willing to count as losses after the fact. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, then please tell a friend. I hope you will join me again tomorrow for more of our shared history.